Lena Green was the kind of woman who believed in love. Growing up, she had always watched her parents' strong marriage with admiration. They held hands in the car, they laughed together on quiet evenings, and they never seemed to need anyone else. Lena imagined her own life would mirror that. She would meet her soulmate, fall in love, and spend her days caring for others. She even married her high school sweetheart, Tyler, right after they both graduated. They had been inseparable since junior year, and the idea of life without him seemed impossible. She became a nurse, the perfect career for someone who cared so deeply about helping others. She worked long hours, comforting the sick and offering compassion to their families. At home, she supported Tyler through his own struggles, always standing by him with a smile and a kind word. They bought their first house, a modest but charming place, with a white picket fence and a garden that she had dreamt of tending. Everything seemed perfect. Everything was as it should be. But perfection, as Lena learned the hard way, was often an illusion. After 4 years of marriage, Tyler changed. Lena first noticed it when he started working longer hours. He came home tired, irritable, and distant. Lena tried to understand. She knew his job in marketing was demanding, but she was starting to feel like she was losing him. He didn't talk to her the same way, and when he did, his words were sharper. He spent more time on his phone, and Lena began to feel like an outsider in her own home. One evening, Lena came home early from work and found Tyler's phone lying on the kitchen counter. Something inside her stirred. She hadn't meant to snoop, but her curiosity got the better of her. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from her best friend, Rachel. It was innocuous enough, just a casual text about a dinner plan. But then, beneath it, Lena saw something that made her heart stop. A text from Tyler. "I can't wait to see you tonight. I miss you." Her mind raced as the room seemed to close in around her. Her hands trembled, but she quickly picked up the phone, reading the messages between Tyler and Rachel. The words were intimate, filled with passion, the kind of things Lena had once heard only between herself and Tyler. Lena couldn't breathe. It felt like the ground beneath her had suddenly vanished. Rachel, her best friend, the woman who had stood beside her through thick and thin, had betrayed her in the worst possible way. Lena stumbled backward, the phone slipping from her hands as a wave of dizziness washed over her. The thought of her husband cheating with someone she trusted so completely made her feel sick. Tyler came home a few hours later, but Lena was already packing her things. The tears burned as they fell, and her heart felt like it was shattering. When he saw her with her suitcase, his face dropped. "Lena, wait," he said, stepping forward. "I can explain." But she couldn't hear him. There was nothing he could say to take away the hurt, the betrayal, the shock. The truth was clear, and there was no coming back from it. She turned and walked out the door, leaving behind the man who had once been the love of her life, and the friend who had torn her world apart. The divorce was final within a few months, but the pain didn't go away. Lena felt lost. She moved into a small apartment, one that didn't have the warmth of the home she once shared with Tyler. The walls seemed to echo with the emptiness she felt inside. Her work became a distraction. She threw herself into her nursing duties, but even that couldn't quiet the noise in her head. Lena felt like she was floating through life, just going through the motions. She woke up, went to work, came home, cried herself to sleep, and did it all over again. At first, she was angry at Tyler, at Rachel, at herself for not seeing the signs. But as the months dragged on, that anger turned into sadness. She felt like she had forgotten how to live. She couldn't trust anyone. How could she? Tyler had shattered her belief in love. And Rachel, how could she have done that to her? The friends she had once relied on had abandoned her, and she couldn't bring herself to open up to anyone else. But one night, after a particularly exhausting shift at the hospital, Lena met someone new. His name was David, and he was a young doctor just starting at the hospital. They bumped into each other in the break room when Lena was grabbing a late-night snack. "Oh, I'm sorry," David said, smiling politely. "I didn't mean to startle you." Lena looked up and saw a tall man with kind eyes. He seemed genuinely embarrassed, and for a moment, Lena felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "No problem," Lena said, offering a tight smile. "It's been a long day." David chuckled. "I hear you. First few months here have been, well, overwhelming." They shared a few more words about their work before Lena excused herself, but the conversation lingered in her mind long after. A few days later, David approached her again, this time with a coffee in hand. "Want to join me for a break?" he asked. Lena hesitated. She wasn't ready to trust anyone, especially not a man. But there was something about David's quiet demeanor that felt safe. She agreed, and over the next few weeks, they saw each other during their breaks, sharing stories and laughter. He was gentle, thoughtful, and attentive, and for the first time in a long time, Lena allowed herself to feel a little spark of attraction. After a few months, David asked her out to dinner. He was kind, respectful, and patient, never rushing her. She appreciated that, and part of her began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could start over. She liked him. She enjoyed spending time with him, but somewhere in the back of her mind, a little voice told her to be careful. She couldn't ignore the fear that every relationship would eventually end in betrayal. They spent more time together. He was always there when she needed him, listening to her when she had a tough day at work, bringing her flowers, or cooking dinner when she didn't have the energy. It felt like the relationship was moving at a steady pace, and Lena began to trust him. But then, something changed. It was subtle at first. David started criticizing her choices more. At first, it was small things, like the way she did her hair or what she wore. But then it escalated. He told her she wasn't good enough, that she should be more focused on her career and less on her friends. He made her feel guilty for spending time with people who weren't him. He began controlling the time they spent together, and when Lena disagreed with him, he would become distant and cold. Lena was confused. She had spent so long rebuilding herself, and now, just when she thought she had found someone she could trust, she was back in a toxic situation. The anxiety returned, and she could feel herself slipping back into the darkness of her past. One night, after a particularly harsh argument, Lena realized what had happened. She had ignored the signs, just like she had with Tyler. David was abusive, in a quieter, more insidious way, but abusive nonetheless. The next morning, she packed her things. This time, she didn't hesitate. She left him. It took Lena a long time to heal from that experience. She stayed single for 7 years after leaving David, focusing on her career and her personal growth. She traveled, spent time with friends, and learned to trust herself again. But she couldn't trust any man. The scars of her past were too deep. But then, something unexpected happened. She met Dr. Samuels, a new surgeon at the hospital. He was different, kind, genuine, and respectful. He treated her like an equal, never pushing her boundaries or rushing her. Over time, they became close friends. He understood her past, and when Lena was ready, he patiently asked her on a date. This time, Lena was cautious. She didn't rush in. She took her time, trusting her instincts. And for the first time in many years, she felt safe. As time passed, Lena realized that true love wasn't perfect. It wasn't about avoiding pain or never facing challenges. It was about trust, respect, and finding someone who valued you for who you are. Lena's heart had been broken, but it had healed piece by piece through the care of others and by caring for herself. And so, with time and patience, Lena learned to trust again. She knew that true healing could only come when she believed in herself and in love once more.